A very warm welcome to the audience. I'm Aisha Mathur, and on behalf of my co-author Neeti Negi, today I will be presenting the paper on the topic Sustainable Development in Indian Villages through Revival of Vernacular Architecture. India is a diverse country which has a varying spectrum of climate, topography, and socio-economic conditions. Over the years, our descendants have developed skills and knowledge to build their dwellings according to the availability of local resources and methods. This was basically their way to show respect to nature, their culture, and at the same time maintaining building economics. But with the advent of modern architecture in India, the vernacular architecture, which comprises of traditional materials and techniques, has taken a back seat. And the vernacular architecture, as we all know, is basically a result of local conditions of a place through which its historical, cultural, and climate context is reflected. It is an untapped source of power through which sustainability can be discovered. This can be a starting point for designing a green building and lead to a much needed ecological development in Indian villages. But the address of sustainability is mostly city oriented these days. Therefore, there is a need to shift our focus on rural architecture where majority of Indian population is situated. This paper will look into the reasons of vanishing vernacular architecture. The vernacular elements can further be blended with modern construction methods to create an energy conscious architecture. In these times where energy is a priceless commodity, we need solutions that are adaptive, if not totally adapted to local settings, economically feasible, and can withstand the test of time. The term vernacular in literal terms mean local or native. It can be described as a built setting that is based upon the local needs of the people. Due to varied geographical conditions in India, we have a variety of vernacular styles available here. This we will discuss in the upcoming slides. According to the Census of India in 2011, a total of 68.84 population lives in the rural area. The houses of the rural poor are found to be lacking in several ways, mostly because of lack of proper planning, sanitation, and inability to withstand the natural calamities. In such areas, sustainable designs can play a vital role to improve the situation. In the past few years, there has been more stress on sustainable architecture in the metropolitan areas due to urban sprawl and major climatic shift. But we need to realize that the roots of sustainability lie in the smaller village areas whose living styles from the very beginning have been compatible with the Mother Nature. Thus, there is a need to revive the same through vernacular architecture so that it can act as a catalyst to create a better living environment. Now, let us look at some climate responsive vernacular elements. India can be broadly divided into six climatic zones: hot and dry, warm and humid, composite, moderate, cold and cloudy, and cold and dry. The hot and dry climate exists in western and central India in places such as Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, and certain cities of Gujarat. The Pakka architecture is dominated by the Haveli type of buildings. They are mostly 2 to 3 stories high, consisting of thick walls and have a central courtyard. The courtyard not only acts as a place for social gathering, but it is the main source of light and ventilation in the Haveli. All the construction is done with locally available stones and with local craftsmen, which makes it very cost effective. On the other hand, the Kacha built structures for this climate type can be found in the villages of Kutch in Gujarat, and they are known as Bhunga. These dwellings are made with common materials such as adobe blocks, mud, bamboo, straw, and plaster, which is most of the times covered by cow dung and lime, etc. Their cylindrical shape aids the structure to be stable in an earthquake-prone area, while the lightweight construction materials helps to protect against the lateral storm and winds. The coastal areas of southern India have warm and humid climate. Naluketu and Etuketu are some traditional dwellings that can be seen in the state of Kerala. They have a courtyard in the center of the house. The orientation is southwest to prevent severe sun rays from entering, and the roof is made sloping because of the high rainfall which can be seen in the area. The local materials such as laterite, timber, bamboo, clay tiles, along with thatch and coconut leaves are used for construction. The composite climate mostly covers the central part of India. Some of the cities in states like New Delhi, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, the architecture is responsive to such weather conditions. For example, the Pakka hutments in Jharkhand are made up of brick, lime plaster, mortar, and brickbat koba. These materials basically have high thermal mass and they act as solid barrier between the inside and the outside, thereby maintaining comfortable temperature. The city of Bangalore is an apt example for the moderate climate. And again, here the orientation of the buildings, the correct placement of the windows, and the use of courtyard play an important role in a good designing. The use of local materials such as lime concrete for flooring, stone masonry, and lime mortar for walls, and the Mangalore tiles for roofing reduces the building costs. In the northern states of India, where there is high altitude, the cold and cloudy climate is experienced, and the precipitation is can also be in form of rain and in snow. These areas are also prone to mild earthquakes and landslides. So the local craftsmen there consider this while designing the building. For example, in Kathkuni architecture of Himachal Pradesh, the alternate courses of houses are made with dry stone masonry and wood without cement mortar. This layering and interlocking of timber and stone provides firmness to the structure, and because these walls are heavy, they provide with good thermal insulation. In places such as Leh and Ladakh, cold and dry climate is experienced, and the locally available materials include earth, wood, timber, lime, and thatch. The use of strong walls and Ladakhi roofs can be seen in maximum houses to provide insulation from cold. Now let us move on to the existing situation in the Indian villages. So as we discussed earlier, poor housing is one of the major problems our country is still facing today because of low economic status of the people who are living here. In the past couple of decades, the building typology here has seen a shift from traditional form to a more modern form or a hybrid form because of easy availability of modern materials and the change of lifestyle of the people. These structures are more energy demanding than their descendant vernacular forms. So, in the current scenario, the Indian vernacular architecture can be largely classified into three types. First is Kacha, second is Pakka, and the third is semi-Pakka. The Kacha structure has a short lifespan as it is made from natural materials and it requires constant cares and frequent replacements. Its construction is most economical out of the three categories, and it's also very easy to construct because the labor is easily available in the rural setup. The Pakka structure, on the other hand, is built out of materials which are more solid and resistant to wear and tear. These materials include concrete, bricks, cements, etc. The permanency of such kind of dwelling is a major advantage as it is easier for the user to adjust inside and it provides better protection from the damage which occurs from the natural disaster. The semi-Pakka architecture is basically a mix of Kacha and Pakka style. Here the walls are usually made out of a Pakka material and the roofs are a derivative of a Kacha style. The Kacha style dwellings can be mostly seen in the remote villages which still do not have access to modern building materials or which cannot afford them. But in majority of villages today, we will find semi-Pakka or Pakka architecture forms that are prevalent. Now let us discuss the reasons for loss of vernacular architecture in India. There is a belief that the process of globalization and urbanization in the world has a negative impact on preserving the traditional architectural heritage. Also, the reduction of rural population due to the migration of people to the city in search of a better lifestyle has made many craftsmen shift their base. And earlier, the architecture and the art, which was being passed on from one generation to another, has now come to a halt. Also, the fundamental changes in the lifestyle in villages has caused the disappearance of traditional architecture. Today, we rely too much on artificial cooling and heating, and instead of using these passive systems, we are being too reliant on the artificial cooling. So, this is also a major cause of rise in greenhouse effect and hence global warming. The ease of availability of modern construction materials and their versatility, the lesser time they take to build, and at times lower cost attract many people to shift their usage of traditional to more of these upgraded materials. There is also new and modern construction technologies which is coming up and which is being invented. These all are marketed so well that they have proved to be a strong competitor to the vernacular architecture in India. The industrialization has further led to a mass production of building elements, which has given rise to more standardized structures. And these elements, they have a much larger carbon footprint, which is a growing threat to our environment. So there are numerous examples where we can see that the vernacular architecture is slowly vanishing. One such example is of Khasi tribes in Meghalaya, which used to build bamboo bridges over the rivers. But these bridges, they were not sturdy in front of the power of the river. So they modified their own vernacular technique, and instead of using bamboo, they used rubber trees to build the bridges. But however, again, even this practice is now dying down slowly because with the use of modern materials such as steel and concrete, the same bridges can be constructed in a small section of time. So, like this, there are many other examples which can be, seen where, the more traditional materials and techniques are being replaced by the contemporary or modern elements. So, the solution for this can be found out by amalgamating both vernacular and modern techniques. Amalgamation of vernacular elements in modern architecture with rapid technological advancements and urbanization, incorporating knowledge of vernacular construction, has proved to be a step forward in terms of sustainable architecture. While one term describes a highly progressive, modern, high-tech and articulate style of architecture, the other deals with the traditional, plain and functional techniques, the simplest way to address the human needs. So in the next slide, we'll look at a few examples where there has been a mix of both the modern and the vernacular styles to give rise to a new kind of a form which is more sustainable style of architecture. The first example we see here is the Cape House, which is in Surat. As you can see in the image, the house is very modern in its look, but the materials which are used here are extremely eco-friendly, and the brick has been used extensively to make it more cost-effective. The second example is the Oland Estate in Tamil Nadu. It is basically a bungalow which is made in mud and with locally available stone. The steep slanting roof not only protect the structure from climatic and rainfall conditions, but also gives the home an idiosyncratic identity. The third example is the Asha Niketan in Kolkata. It is built in traditional bamboo and mud huts. The vernacular style is being followed by using local materials such as exposed bricks for walls, terracotta tile roofs, and large windows with bamboo mesh, which is locally known as dharma. The next example is the brick house, which is in Mumbai. It is a farmhouse which is set in a rural area and is made up of wood, stone, bricks, and bamboo. The use of eco-friendly technologies such as rat trap bonds, brick jalis, and built-in furniture are not only economical but they also give an earthy feel to the space. The next example is the Kripacharya farmhouse in Pune. From Chira, a local red laterite stone, to Kund, a traditional central open space, to large verandas, this house is a manifestation of many vernacular elements. As for the modern materials, glass is being used for direct day sunlight, and double layered terracotta roofing is done for insulation. So you can see that it is such a beautiful mix of modern and vernacular techniques and materials. And lastly, the pearl material of fashion, which is in Jaipur. And you will see that in this institute, several elements are used to create an environmentally conscious passive habitat, and it uses techniques such as step wells, which is a traditional way of cooling, along with jalis to keep the light and ventilation in flow. To conclude, I would just like to say that to keep up with the current times and technological advancements, we should not forget our traditional building knowledge and indigenous techniques. Since sustainability is a burning topic amongst us, the villages need to revive their time-tested art of building to inculcate the same. There is a necessity to integrate the rural planning and sustainable development to create a better living environment for the population. We have seen with the examples we have discussed in this paper that the certain design approaches can be merged together with modern construction techniques in order to create a ecologically sound built environment which is also commercially viable. As design professionals, we should plan the future with greater awareness, having an approach towards green building design. Indian vernacular architecture is one of the most spectacular styles in the world, and we should respect it by integrating the existing fabric of artificial and natural environment as aptly as possible. I thank you all for attending this presentation and hope that I was able to give some insight into reviving vernacular techniques in architecture and planning for villages.